Thanks for watching Thursday Debate with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we'll be talking about, on a very optimistic note, as the Egyptian leadership, President Abdel al-Sisi had directed for the implementation of the state project in order to develop the country's education. And this entails a number of foreign universities to be present and to be established on Egyptian soil. Egypt is today putting education at the forefront of the 2030 vision for sustainability, for sustainable development. And the president mainly aims at having around a new generation of cadres, new generation also of international universities that is going to serve that creative cause. And today Egypt is positioning itself as an educational hub for the international students also all around the world. So look at the exposure that you can today get accredited with those universities on Egyptian soil. This used to be difficult in the past because you just need to travel abroad in order to achieve this dimension. However, today we have those international universities and this international educational standard on Egyptian soil, improving our research and at the same time improving the educational climate in the country. Talking about this topic, we're really honored to have with us Dr. Ahmed Tawwab, a professor at Munufiyya University, our dear friend. Dr. Ahmed, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you, Taghreed, for having me. Always a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's a very interesting topic, and well, it injects new hope.
Right.
Because it's a new dimension that is happening on Egyptian soil, and Egypt putting education at the forefront of our 2030 vision for sustainability.
That is very true. Very critical topic and very significant topic. But before we start talking about that, let me just send a message, a solidarity message to all the people living in Palestine. We share with all of them the feeling of pain, the feeling of sorrow. We would like to submit also our condolences to all the victims, and hopefully peace will be overcoming and will be probably overwhelming by Egypt's efforts. I'm pretty sure Egypt is just doing its best to make peace over Israel, because this is the only option that can make our achievement coming at the end very soon. Now, back again to our topic, universities and educational universities and international colleges and universities. I think that this is very, very interesting to talk about that today. As we were talking about this topic before, we were talking about that we have different international colleges today in Egypt. This is part of the soft power of our country. Yes. We are talking, I was just reviewing the report issued by the Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Khalid Abdel, and we were talking about something related to bringing 12,000 international students to be educated in our country, Egypt. Yeah. We are talking about building up new British universities, American universities, Canadian universities as well. And so we have the sense of the soft power that we've been talking about that before. The question that I have today, and probably this is a very critical question, why do we make all of that? Because for different beneficial points. Yes. Number one, we would like, as a matter of fact, to make Egypt as international educational center in the Middle East. We would like to create that sense of genuine diversity in our country. We would like also, we can connect that with the economic level. So we can also boost up the economic skill and the economic progress in our country. There is a connection, as a matter of fact, between education from one hand, investment on the other hand. And this is why they consider education, it's not just the way of learning, but on the long-term concept, this is an investment, but investment for the human capital.
Definitely investment in the human capital, and under the leadership of His Excellency President Abdel al-Sisi, Egypt today is investing in the human being. It's very important to bring about cadres who are really capable of being creative. And this won't happen unless you invest in the human being. Since being kids, all throughout the way, well, coaching them and training them to have this sense of innovation. Having this sense of creativity and innovation, this does not come around by chance or haphazardly.
That's very true, and that's why this is part and parcel of Egypt's Vision 2030.
Yeah.
There is a 5-year plan, there is a 10-year plan as well. And let me tell you something here very, very interesting as well, which is when we talk about training, we are talking about the training of the students, the training of the faculty, of the professors, the training of the employees as well. We are talking about different parts in the educational circle to include everyone. Today, we are witnessing drastic, if I would say that, or dramatic change happening in educational systems in Egypt today. Just before we go for this episode, we were talking together about what happened during the second semester for this academic year. So today, for example, and this is something when I just think about that, I always ask myself, what happened? What kind of change do we have nowadays? So I can just send a very short message to more than 2,000 students just by one click. There is a change that's happening nowadays. And there is, let me just say, a determination for our country to be competitive, to reach the level of international standards and international competitive levels, to make our graduates at the end to find job opportunities, not just in Egypt. We are not talking today about Egypt, but we are trying to find different job opportunities in different countries. And as I said before, that the map today is totally different. So you can just work in your country and you can have a connection with another international company abroad or outside Egypt. So the situation, our lifestyle today is completely different from the past.
Yes.
And I think that Egypt is trying to cope with the international changes that's happening, when we even consider what's happening regarding the COVID-19 changes and what happened in the world today. So we are trying just to make everything go in a perfect way and at the same time in a very progressive sense.
Yes, great that you've mentioned keeping pace with what is happening worldwide, because this is really very trendy.
Right.
Today, the trend and the vision is going for the digital world as a whole, and we have the great initiative that has been directed by the president for a digital Egypt. This won't happen unless we have this sense of a format of the different services present, and among those services are the universities.
Right.
Egypt has opened a new generation of international universities. We do have a British university, a French university, the AUC, of course, the American university, serving also the new ones, and under the new umbrella, it's co-relevant with new technologies.
Right, that's very true. Let me just add also something else. In addition to the international universities that Egypt is just trying to have nowadays, there is also something which is called the civil style of universities as well. So civil universities, governmental or public universities, private universities, international universities. Why do we, so we have a variety of universities because we believe that education is the powerful key when it comes to the progress of this nation.
Yes.
And again, I was just thinking before about Egypt is trying nowadays to bring international students to study and to be educated in Egypt. Why do we have that? Because this is part of the soft power of the country. Look to what United States is doing every year. And as you know, that I got Fulbright grant before. It's an American grant in order to study and in order to work in an American university. Today, Egypt is just doing the same. So we are bringing students, and in this way, it does have also a very significant impact on the cultural level. So it increases the level of tolerance, it increases the level of understanding, international understanding. It makes people more open.
Yeah.
And to have that sense of open-minded style, because when you deal with international students with international levels, then you immerse yourself in international cultures, and in this way it makes you more open for different changes. And this is what we are looking for, to have a graduate with international levels, international standards, tolerant, competitive with the international job market, and in this way we can just make the job done in a perfect way.
Yes, doing the job done in a perfect way. This is actually a question that has been always on debate, how to make the whole job getting finished in the best way possible, and at the same time how we can do it in accordance with the whole beat worldwide. So today it has been really very catchy, and lots of our friends abroad were really admiring the fact that globally accredited universities are present in Egypt, because this is definitely a step forward. As you've mentioned, Dr. Ahmed, that it is going to be a new window of opportunity, that it is going to help us also get attached to different cultures, and it's a great exposure. You were a student who had been accredited with Fulbright, as you've said.
Right.
What could be the pros and cons of such experiences? Maybe you can tell us more about what does it take to have accreditation to such programs, and how can those programs be quite useful for you in the future? How did it really reflect on you as a professor later?
Well, first of all, for such international grants, and I think that this is what Egypt is trying to offer nowadays, it makes those who are in the field of education to be ambassadors for their countries, to be international scholars as well, to be more immersed in different environment, and to acquire and gain international experience that can be very beneficial when you get back to your country. And this is what's happening today. So when you gain the international experience outside, then you go back again to your country and you convey such experiences to your students. And this is what's happening when we bring international students to Egypt. Then, believe it or not, it's another way of indirect way of marketing for our country. And so when they come here and they see the customs, the traditions, the way of lifestyle, and everything related to Egyptian culture, then when they travel abroad, then they keep talking about that. This is part, as I said before, of the soft power. And you remember when we were talking about Al-Azhar institution and the Coptic Church as well, both of them are very significant. Why? Because they have that sense of very significant effect internationally. So you have students coming to study in Al-Azhar, and then you have the impact of the Coptic Church in different countries. Then you can just see how Egypt has very powerful ways that could be probably invested in an optimal way. So back again to your point, because this is very critical. People sometimes believe when you travel abroad, then you're going to have something like brainwashing style. This is not true. As a matter of fact, when you travel abroad, your mind will be more open to different changes.
And you can definitely be an ambassador of your hawiyya, of your identity.
Identity, absolutely right. And it makes you more loyal to your home place. I remember when I was in the United States, and every time I was traveling there, I always had that sense of homesickness. So I was just
marketing Egypt at the same time.
You see? And so people sometimes were asking me, so tell us more about the history in your country, tell us more about the culture in your country. So that is the beneficial part. Remember what, I remember a very important and very significant statement by the former U.S. Secretary of State, Colin Powell, when he said that I cannot find something more valuable to the United States than to bring students to be educated in our country, because they will be the future leaders of their countries in one day. So this, you can just see how it works in the long term. This is all about long-term investment, but in a very positive way.
Yeah, and long-term investment in a very positive way. And while we are preparing the students of today to be the leaders of tomorrow, and this is another concept that we need to work on. Do those students need a coaching in order to acquire those sense of leadership skills? What does it take in order to bring about those leaders in an environment which is really very healthy, and a climate that is quite encouraging and would help them actually perform according to an international standards? We are always talking about this sense of an international standard, and talking about universities also accreditation, that we hear this term from every now and then. However, it is great that you're with us, so that you would tell our viewers more about the choice of those universities. If I do have like more than one international university around, where to go? What sort of criteria? For you, it was mainly basic because it was co-relevant to a special program. But how about when you have more than one globally accredited university around?
Well, it makes, it does have many beneficial results at the end.
Diversification of choices.
That is one point, that, as you said, diversity in our community. This is one hand. It does have also something like increasing and expanding the cultural understanding. This is from another different side. It also helps in making economic achievement, because when you bring students, then there is money spent for education here as well. So there is a positive, interactive, dynamic sense happening in educational system, and it makes Egypt on the international map. This is what we are talking about. We like
when international students are uplooking the potential of international Egyptian universities, and they want to join.
And just the other day, I was reading a statement by the Minister of Higher Education talking about that there is a huge leap happened when it comes to the ranking of Egyptian universities. It jumps, it was, I remember it was 102, 102, 103, something like that, and now it became like 82 or 83. There is like something like 20 positions, progresses happening here for the ranking. This is something very important. Something else that we have to consider as well, that today that there is a scientific research centers in every universities, and they are well connected together electronically. We didn't have that before. And so when you just make the whole system electronically connected together, that really helps also in making a progress for the education. Today we are talking, and we've been talking in my college, in my university all the time about quality and the quality. Today we are just moving for the concept of comprehensive quality. So it's not just about the professors or the students and the syllabi. When it comes to the syllabi, there is also a deep-rooted change happening. So it is not, as it was in the past, more flexible, more dynamic, and making the syllabi to be connected with the job market at the end. This is what we are looking for. There is something very important, which is to connect your students inside the class with their life outside the class. If you didn't make that, then education in this way doesn't make any sense. What is the benefit of education if I just educate the students inside class, and when they just go out, they have no connection, So this is what we are trying to do today. The concept of education today is totally different from the past, and I kept talking about that before, and I have a deep conviction about this way, because education is always considered as a very effective weapon when it comes to our Egyptian identity.
Yes, we have many weapons in order to preserve our Egyptian identity, and moving further, keeping pace with what is happening all over the world is definitely a plus. It's with great sense of honor and pride that today we say that we have globally accredited universities in our country. We're moving forward in the right direction. The president urged focusing on academic studies in the new Egyptian universities, and mainly based on science. And this is also very important, fostering the scientific choice and encouraging research and creativity is another plus. Let's watch. We'll be back. This report will be back.
تحية تقدير واحترام لبطل حقيقي. البطل ده هو مصر وشعبها. الحكاية مش حكاية لا حكومة ولا قيادة، ده حكاية كل مواطن في مصر. أكرمت مصر وشرفت مصر وعزيت مصر، انتم قتلتم. فالشرف كل الشرف، والكرامة كل الكرامة، والفضل كل الفضل لله سبحانه وتعالى، ثم ليكم انتم. شرفتوني واكرمتموني وعزتوني ورفعت راسي قدام الدنيا كلها باللي انتم عملتوه. والله 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 لن يستطيع اي رئيس يقف مكاني هنا انه يقدر يعمل حاجه بدونكم. لن يستطيع. قصه وطن يتحدث عن نفسه، شعب أراد الحياة فاستجاب له القدر.
President Abdel al-Sisi has highlighted the need that academic studies in the newly built universities be focused on modern sciences and advanced scientific specialities to qualify graduates for job markets. The President's remarks came in a meeting with the Prime Minister and a group of ministers and state officials The head of state urged taking into consideration the emerging workforce requirement due to the current and future developmental projects in the country. The president also ordered providing outstanding students with scholarship programs so they can join the colleges of these new universities. The meeting reviewed the Ministry of Higher Education's national projects nationwide, especially that related to establishing government, private and technological universities, centers and research institutes. The meeting was attended by Minister of Higher Education, Abdel, who presented the latest updates on the building and construction works for university projects nationwide. The Minister of Higher Education clearly demonstrated the geographic scope, methodology, and the to-be-given curricular programs planned through those universities and their connection to the local, regional, and international labor market needs. The meeting was attended also by Assistant to the President for National and Strategic Projects, Sharif Ismail, Governor of the Central Bank, Tariq Amir, Minister of Finance, Mohammed Maid, Presidential Advisor for Urban Planning, Major General Amir Said Ahmed, Presidential Advisor for Financial Affairs, Major General Mohammed Amin, and Chairman of the Engineering Authority for the Armed Forces, Major General Ihab Al-Far. Meanwhile, Dr. Khaled Abdel announced that Egypt will establish 6 new technological universities across the country. These include the Technological University of Samanud in Gharbiya, the Technological University in New Asyut, the Technological University in New Tiba in Luxor, the Technological University in the 6th of October city, the Technological University in Burg Al Arab, and the Technological University in East Bursaid. Abdel Ghaffar explained that these technological universities will contribute greatly to supplying internal and external labor markets with well-trained, qualified graduates. The universities will present many academic programs for industries such as metallurgy, wood, engineering and electronics, electricity, spinning and weaving, food, manufacturing, paper and paper products, printing and publishing, chemicals, building materials, ceramics, refactories and mining.
Yes, we were talking before airing the report concerning fostering the scientific research and encouraging innovation. So this is very important in a society that is mainly based on science and technology. Is a one that is definitely triumphant in the coming phase.
That's very true. The key word here, as you said, Arid, it's all about the science. And I believe in, and this is why Egypt today is also trying to build scientific centers in a way that can really help. Today we are witnessing an international challenge, which is COVID-19.
Yes.
The only way out, the only tool that can help us to overcome such a challenge is by science. It's not by any other way. It's just by science.
Yes.
And so if we don't take this approach, the scientific approach, and that's why Egypt, it's part of its vision to make science as an important track in the platform of Egypt's progress. I know that some people probably will say that, you know, you are sometimes wishy-washy, but I wouldn't agree with that. We should have a dream. And we should also talk about to what extent we can just make our dreams to happen. And so if that is the way out for making progress for our country, then science and the scientific approaches will be the best option in order to overcome all of such challenges. As I said, there are challenges, yes. There are many obstacles, yes, that's very true. But there is also a sense of optimism, a sense of being hopeful for what will happen in the future. I believe, as I said before, in the Egyptian youth, and I believe in their capabilities. And I think that in this way, they will be able to make something that was before in the past impossible, but today that can happen. So if you just have that sense of optimism, dreams, and conviction, and for what you're doing, a passion for what you're doing, I think in this way, this will be the successful way for making the progress and the contribution for our country.
Definitely it is, and having a passion for changing the face of life is definitely a plus. Disseminating this culture, let me say, of creativity and innovation across the country, and glad that you've mentioned the youth conferences, because it was the launching pad of this sense of creativity. If we in a flashback, remember how did it go? Even the slogan itself was go and create. And with this sense of creativity, how can we have a generation that understands the importance of being creative, the strength of being a creative society?
You know, there is something very important, because we are talking about the digitalized systems in education, something that is very critical nowadays, and I always urge my students to follow this point, which is innovation and creativity. This is part and parcel of the learning style nowadays. And as you know, that we have today something which is called the hybrid education. We have the far distance education, and we have the traditional way of education. So if we are talking, and as you know, Tagreed, that I train students on the skills of English language and Arabic language, and the skills of translation and interpreting as well. So one way that I used to make it, just use the electronic ways and to make the students to be interactive and very dynamic with me. That wouldn't happen if you don't have two important points. Number one, flexibility, and number two, it's creativity. And it's not just about me as a professor or as a trainer or as someone who is educating his students, but it's also, you should also make that being tangible on your students as well. And something very important to make here is just, number one, to make something like a strong rapport, a very strong connection between you and your students, making them feel like you are in a small family together, and they can express their ideas freely without any sense of reservations, and making them to think also in another unusual way, in a very critical way probably, which is unusual or something that could be out of the box style. So this is what we really need nowadays, as we are witnessing challenges. So at the end, we also need that sense of out of box ideas that can help us to move forward.
Yes, out of the box ideas are always very important, because thinking out of the box means that you're thinking differently. And you are thinking in a way that would bring about this sense of connection and this sense of innovation. Talking about disseminating creativity and innovation, and you're talking, Dr. Ahmed, about making use of the communication technology.
That's very true.
And talking also about achieving this sense of rapport with your students. Was that rapport stronger when it was a direct contact in the classroom before? Because today in our life, you know, after COVID-19 hit, we are more into our communication tools, more into our laptops and cells and mobile cells. So what could be the pros and cons? We're using communication technology, however, we miss still this sense of rapport that was there between the student and the professor directly.
That's very true, and this is probably could be one point related to the pros and cons of the technological or innovative ways of using far learning style of education. But again, it depends on who is just delivering such educational content, and in what way are you making something like unusual way of making your students to be motivated and to be passionate for the field as well. I definitely totally agree with you about that. The direct way, the one-to-one sessions with my students were really very helpful, beneficial. But again, we do have another different alternative nowadays. And I think that it depends on what you're doing. What sense of passion do you have? Because the students sometimes, they see that passion in the eyes of the professor, in the eyes of the teacher. I always remember a very important statement, probably this is a verb, when they always say, when I hear, I remember, when I see, then I practice than when I do, then I make the students to be immersed in the field. So it's a number of points together that can help me to compensate the other way of the direct or the one-to-one style of education. People sometimes say that sooner or later we will get back to the traditional way, but I probably, with my deep respect to all of that, I disagree with that. I disagree with such concept, because today the world reached the point of not returning back. We are just the electronic systems in every part, in every corner here in our country and in the world today. You can just see what's happening for the international organizations and international institutions. They are holding meetings electronically. We have universities today. You can just join the university without even traveling abroad. And believe it or not, that today we have a platform which is called a YouTube. And in this way, students, I said before that students one day, probably within a short term, they wouldn't go to any college or university. They can make everything electronically, and that will happen very soon. Back again to our topic, Egypt and digitalized system of education. I strongly believe that electronic ways can go along with the other traditional ways, but we should have very important points here: passion, enthusiasm, and the most critical part here, Tagreed, it's all about the awareness. I was just talking just the other day with you. I remember that we were talking about digitalized illiteracy, and the literacy concept today is not about writing and reading, but it's more about to what extent, how professional are you when it comes to using technology. And so when you just make that, when you make the investment in education by technology, I think that in this way we can just have a very, very different generation of our country.
Yes, we will have a very much different generation in our country, because we definitely believe in our country, and this sense of enthusiasm is very important. Seeing is believing, and we're seeing around definitely all those clues of hope. So we could say that Masr Gaya and Egypt is coming. Egypt is coming stronger, God willing. Let's watch. Yes, we're talking about integrating information and communication technology into our educational process, which is really very wise today. Egypt is upgrading its educational system and implementing a strategy in order to build a digital Egypt. This is definitely reflecting on all the styles of life in the country. When we have a digital Egypt, this means that we have more facilities, we have access, easier access to services. So this is applying on education too.
Right. And as you said, Tariq, you said very, very important point, which is it goes for all sectors across the board in our country. That's very true. It's not just about education, but it's also about the tourism. It's about the industry. It's about the agriculture. Today we were talking about electronic irrigation systems. We were talking about electronic ways of connecting all factors together in the industrial field. But there is also something very important here that we have to be very aware about when it comes to why do we use digitalized systems according to Egypt's vision. It's because Egypt is trying to fight corruption. And I think that by just using the electronic ways, we are just making a huge confrontation when it comes to corruption as well. There is a sense also of a determination to increase the level of transparency as well. So if you just put corruption, fighting corruption from one hand, and increasing the level of transparency, that makes the country to be in a very advanced level in different fields.
Yes.
We are talking about numbers. We are not talking about stories, but we are talking about numbers.
Facts.
And facts as well. When it comes to the international agencies, they consider Egypt on the right track economically. I just read the statement that Egypt is considered, along with Rwanda as well, both countries, they are considered to be a very prosperous...
And the admiration of our growth rate for our economy.
Yeah. So it is considered as a very prosperous economic market, especially nowadays. It's just because of the challenges that we have internationally when it comes to COVID-19. It affects every part in the world. But in God's willing, after we overcome all of such challenges, then I'm very sure that you will see that the situation is different in our country.
Yes, we will. Definitely, we have challenges, but the great thing is that we have a dream.
Right.
And we are working hard in order to achieve the dream and make it come true. Among the most important tools that we are working accordingly is the soft power of the country.
That's very true. Right.
Marketing our country all
Right.
over the world, definitely our soft power is playing a role in that. Nile TV International is part of Egypt's soft power, disseminating Egypt's culture, Egypt's history, Egypt's tourism, and the achievements that are there on every inch of Egyptian soil.
That's very true.
So how can we invest in our soft power and also the co-link between the strength of our soft power and the new educational system?
Right. Well, Tagreed, we were talking before about soft power, and we talked in detail about that. When I just say the soft power of the country, so we have the concept of soft power and hard power as well. So when it comes to the soft power, we are talking about history, we are talking about culture, we are talking about education, we are talking about geography, we are talking about art and cinema and artistic field, we are talking about customs and traditions. I'm going to give you a very minor example. We have today in Egypt about, it ranges from 29 to 32 million students being educated. Half of Egyptian population are considered among the youth category, and this is a huge, this is a powerful tool when it comes to the way of increasing the level of marketing when it comes to tourism. You have in Egypt today probably 2/3 of the monuments, international monuments. So this is something, this is a huge. Today Egypt is building the International Museum that would be inaugurated very, very soon. So again, we have different ways here. When I was traveling outside Egypt in the Gulf area, or probably in Europe or in the United States, I found people, especially from the Arab countries, when I was just talking in Egyptian style of Arabic language, they understand very well what is this accent, and they know very well how to talk in Egyptian dialect. And why? Because in this way you feel how influential and how powerful is your way. As you know, that I'm someone who is specialized in the field of languages, linguistics, and the translation and interpreting and all of that kind of stuff. So language plays an important role. Egyptian dialect of Arabic language is considered among the top learning classes when it comes to Arabic language in the US universities. When I was just teaching Arabic language in the United States, they told me that we would like you to teach students not just the standard Arabic, but also the Egyptian dialect as well. So you can just see, it's not here a chauvinism, probably we might be accused of that, but this is not true. It is a sense of fact that we have nowadays. When you just see people in Morocco, Tunisia, and people in Bahrain and Oman, they understand very well the way of your style, the way of your linguistic style, then you feel how powerful is the Egyptian
and our
identity.
drama and soap operas.
That's very true.
And,
so
how they are really admiring also our superstars.
That's very true.
All around the Gulf and the Arab world.
And they always say that Cairo is the Hollywood of the Middle East, and this is very true. So it's not just here about the artistic style or the cinema, but it's also in education style as well. It's also about the cultural background as well. You have a lot of people who got Nobel prizes, among them Naguib Mahfouz and many people actually. So you can just see how influential is it. When I was in the Gulf area, when I traveled to China, I found the Chinese people telling me that they were educated in Al-Azhar University. So again, you can just feel proud of your identity, and this is something very important. How can we make people feel really proud and really loyal to their identity? This is the critical point, because today people sometimes accuse digitalized systems like in this way it's gonna remove our identity. This is not true.
We will be talking about this this point specifically because we really felt it when the mummies parade were just moving.
Yeah, that's very true.
We really felt how we all we're very much proud of
Right.
our Egyptian identity. While back to the government efforts and the revision of this digitization process at universities and also with directives at university hospitals, many steps are on the way. Let's watch.
Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research Khalid Abdel and Minister of Communications and Information Technology Ahmed met to review the digitalization process in Egypt's higher education sector. The review included a follow-up on the implementation of the electronic examination system, the automation of university hospitals, and the digitization of universities. Abdel emphasized the importance of the Digital Universities project in cooperation with the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology. The project aims to convert Egyptian universities into digital higher education establishments and develop their communications infrastructure. The process looks to meet the state's plan and requirements in achieving a nationwide digital transformation. Abdel also confirmed the Egyptian leadership's interest in the national project for automating university hospitals. The initiative aims to raise the efficiency of medical and treatment services provided to patients and is designed to save time and maximize the efforts of hospital workers. It comes in accordance with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's mandate in cooperation with the Ministries of Higher Education and Scientific Research and Communications and Information Technology. For his part, Talat said that there is permanent and continuous cooperation between the two ministries to implement a number of integrated projects. These have been set up to take advantage of the opportunities that digital technologies bring to the development of the university education system and the development of the educational process. The Egyptian government holds an interest in the importance of digital transformation for education and in light of implementing the strategy to build a digital Egypt. The meeting dealt with the procedures for completing the technological infrastructure at Egyptian universities and discussed university needs in terms of supporting them with advanced server devices. The meeting reviewed methods of developing and raising the efficiency inside some colleges at public universities, raising internet speeds within universities, and establishing specialized Internet of Things laboratories. The meeting also discussed the procedures that completed with projects' automated tests.
We were talking about the role of soft power and also the fact that we should be very much proud of our identity.
Right.
Dr. Ahmed, we were talking about that, and this scene of the mummy's royal march has been one of the scenes of a lifetime that would really reflect on this sense of being proud of our identity that we're talking about.
Right.
As we can see here, excerpts where His Excellency the President was inaugurating the National Civilization Museum. And lots of the masterpieces that have been there, and what a message. Talking to a number of foreign ambassadors, they said that it was really the most dazzling scene that has happened recently, and they said that in their countries it was a great message and an invitation. Everybody was very much curious to know more about Egypt
and
amazed at what they saw, at the spectacle that they saw.
That's very true. As a matter of fact, as you said already now, that the message that Egypt is trying to send, it's a human message for everyone in the world, that Egypt is a place for not just for geography and not just for culture, but it is a historical center for world's history. So it does have a global message. That is, Egypt is keen on preserving the heritage. And this is not, as a matter of fact, Egypt's heritage, but it's the world heritage. And so I just read the statement also that Egypt is exerting efforts to restore some monuments back to the homeland. So I think that...
yes, that's in front of the Egyptian Museum, you know. Those scenes are going to live and are going to remain memorable. such a scene that was attracting world attention in Egypt has been in the headlines.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So this is, yes, so this is, as we were talking about the soft power of the country, this is part of the soft power.
Definitely.
When I was abroad, traveling abroad, I was just being asked about, tell us more about the history of pyramids, the history of ancient Egyptians. And so there is today, I was amazed about that there are very specific academic departments in the world, in the global universities, and they just focus on the history of Egypt. They are Egypt's archaeology. They are talking about the remains, the monuments inside Egypt. And so I was just amazed, as we are talking about the soft power of the country, I was amazed when one day I found the Department of Music in the college whereby I was teaching. They just have a major of music dedicated, just they study the songs of Kulthum. So there was, I remember there was a professor and she was all her academic research on the Egyptian figure Kulthum. So you can just see that there are iconic figures that really plays an important role in the modern history, not just in Egypt, but in the world.
Yes, definitely. It's going to leave a great reflection and a great impact. And I thank you so much, Professor Dr. Ahmed Tawwab, Professor at Nuffiya University, for coming to the Thursday debate tonight. And we talked about Egyptian international accredited university and global ones that is definitely putting Egypt on the international map education-wise. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me, Zarid. Thank you.
And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Many thanks for watching.